Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome from our break. I trust that you're able to do something. I need to be sure if those, I can see 45 persons here. I just want to be sure that the 45 persons here are with me, or maybe you are still on the break. I'll be glad if you can just type yes on the chat box, just to be sure you are here with me. Please join me and just type yes. Let me do my own right away so that I can lead by example. Yes, 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 yes. All the yes. Oh, all the yes are there. Great, fantastic. Great, great. Thank you so much for staying with us. We are winding down gradually, and we are getting to the best part of the presentation. And I need you to be here with me to the end, where we're going to give the farewell for everyone. Next in our presentation is Mastering Self-Learning Techniques for Continuous Growth. And on the profile, we are having Dr. Benita Amos-Fidelis. Is an associate member of the Institute of Operational Research and Management Science of Nigeria. She holds a doctorate degree in the field of production, operation management. She has a passion for teaching, mentoring, and empowering minds to maximize and fulfill their God's-given potential. She has a proven expertise in student engagement, youth empowerment and mentoring, high-impact teaching methodology, financial and statistical modeling, mathematical programming and big data analytics and visualization. She teaches statistics, operation research, operation management, quantitative techniques, mathematical programming, among others. As an academic stabilizer for over 14 years of professional experience and teaching, culminating of 9 years in university lecturing, where she propels students all around growth and overseeing student affairs, has increased her wealth of experience in teaching, research, and learning. She has authored 3 books in statistics and modeling, alongside with having many scholar publications in the field of operation management in scholarly journals, with particular interest in lean thinking, operational resilience, and sustainable manufacturing practices. She has a renowned record of excellence in her academic and teaching practices, and integrate faith in all teaching and learning experience. Ladies and gentlemen, currently, our speaker of today is an adjunct lecturer with Babcock University, Nigeria, and the Vice Dean of the School of Graduate School, Valley View University, Ghana. She lectures for the Emerging Leadership Institute in Africa, as well as a member of CALM. CALM stands for Center for Outreach, Mentoring, and Empowerment, engaging research and speaking engagement for the group. She mentors senior high school students, undergraduate and postgraduate students, as well as young professionals, in the acquisition of soft skills and exhibition of professionalism that will distinguish them and make them a change agent for the continent of Africa and the world at large. She is passionate about challenging young ones to exhibit Christ's Christian values of excellence and integrity in their educational pursuit, by principle and by practice. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Dr. Benita Amos, discussing with us Mastering Self-Learning Techniques for Continuous Growth. Dr. Benita, you have the floor.
All right, thank you, Dr. Jerry, and thank you, Professor Bright and other facilitators. It's such a pleasure to be here this afternoon. Please, I don't know if the host will permit me to share my slide. Okay, I think I've been given the host permission. All right, thank you very much. All right, it's my pleasure to be here. I don't know if you can see my slide.
Yes, Doc, we can see it. You can just make it full slide.
Okay, let's just.
You may need to make it a full slide. We're still seeing your view.
Yeah, coming.
All right, ma'am.
All right.
Thank
Is it better now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, though.
All right. Thank you very, very much. All right. As I was saying, Dr. Jerry, thank you so much for the introduction. And I want to thank the facilitators. It's been a pleasure being here for the past 3 days. I've been in and out, and I've tried to follow through with some of the things that is happening. And I'm particularly excited because I can really see that the change we design Africa is being promoted, particularly at this platform. And I've listened to quite a number of presenters, and it gives me a reassurance that indeed there is hope for Africa. There is hope for Africa. You know, today I've been at the Kufuor Scholarship Foundation, the former president of Ghana, where we interview 100-level students for some scholarship positions. And seeing these young, bright African minds putting together the things they have learned on their own and how it has enhanced continuous growth. You know, it just inspires me that indeed there is hope. There is hope for Africa. And we can't afford to give up on our continent and on our country. You know, what we do at ASFI is a very laudable project and a very commendable one to promote transformation in Africa. And I want to tell you that you are not alone in this fight. You're not alone in this project. Let's keep heralding the call. Let's keep calling people's attention to the fact that we can be better at what we do, and that we can grow our own food, we can eat our own food, we can do our own things, and that Africa can actually be a continent that would stand out in the global space. You see, at COM, where I also serve as a mentor, we also do similar, at COM, where I serve as a mentor, which is a Center for Outreach, Mentorship, and Empowerment. We also envision an Africa where young professionals of high integrity will excel in their careers, and they would lead to transforming the society and transforming the globe, the nation, the continent as a whole. And our mission is to empower students, young professionals through leadership development, mentorship, research, and outreach. And these are some of the programs we have done, just like we see ASFI also making calls on the fact that we need to transform Africa through our intellectual contributions to the globe. We also conduct leadership seminar where we meet with young professionals, where we get to sit and talk about why Africa cannot continue to be a tired and a retired continent. I listened to Professor Tomoro's presentation, and it was quite inspiring and challenging that indeed we can create the Africa that we want. This was one of the trainings that we did this year. This is the next gen of leaders for African Center for Energy and Policy. And you need to see this group of young Africans that there's a next generation of leadership growing in Africa. And I can tell you that it's not just in any specific country. We've been in Uganda this year. We were at University of Beraton in Kenya this year. We held the Uplift International Conference of Africa this year in Ghana here. And I can tell you that a next generation of leaders are being grown to take leadership position and to take strategic positions in leadership in Africa. And you see, we do not just end at the university level, we go down to the grassroots, because somehow we see that a lot of young ones are looking for just any means of escape. In fact, any means of escape from Africa is a route. But we see a situation where we get to the senior high schools, the junior high school, to challenge their mind, to realize that even from their young stage, they can actually learn to love this country and get involved in the grooming of this country. And you can see some young ones. We are here at Mawuli Senior High School in Ghana, and I can tell you that things are really changing. This is also one of our training. We also get to the street economy, where we help people realize that enough of the complaints. We have complained for too long, and complaint has not changed our situation. So it is time to become critical thinkers and see, what can I do? And you see, when I got the topic, mastering self-learning for continuous growth, what can I do? How can I develop myself? How can I strategically position myself so that in my little sphere of influence, I'm able to make the change and create the change that I desire? And that's what we challenge even those at the street economy to do. We were at the University of Legon, Ghana, and we challenge the young ones. Yes, it is good to pursue a degree. It is good to do this, but what do you have aside this profession? What do you have as a side business? And we challenge some people to rise up to fight hunger. They call themselves hunger fighters. And so these young students decided to take on to farming, to do farming as a side business of what they do aside their academics. And you can see them, in fact, they went into large-scale farming of rice, of cucumber, and I can tell you that things are changing. The mentality of people are changing. And with this fight, we would not stop. And I want to encourage us, let's continue. It may look as if the impact is very small now, but it's just a matter of time. It will grow and enlarge. This was a Women in Leadership Summit where women from Africa across the globe came. And, we are talking about the issue of, is it gender equity or gender equality? Which one do we really stand for as a nation, as Africa? And, we looked at several issues. In fact, we went into the climate change and global warming, where tree planting was encouraged. And, the Agenda 2063 is to create an Africa that we want. And in order to create the Africa that we want, it starts with me. It starts with you. It starts with all of us. And the question is, in this army that is being groomed, am I going to allow myself to be transformed? How am I going to develop myself? It is good to engage in traditional learning, but beyond traditional learning, is there anything more I can do that would enhance continuous growth and development, not just for me, but even for the next generation, so that I can pass on the baton of leadership and make a difference? Please, I'm getting a feedback.
I hope they have sorted your not valid, not valid.
So please, I'm getting a feedback, Dr. Kwabai.
Sorry about care of that.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. You are.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So the topic before me this afternoon is mastering self-learning techniques for continuous growth. And I'm going to be looking at the concept of self-learning. We'll take a little view of the historical view of self-learning. We'll do a little contrast between self-learning and traditional learning. Look into theories of self-learning, learning apps and softwares. I saw Prof telling us about the Amos-Fidelis app that can bring about conferencing, teaching, just like the Zoom app. I said, wow, what an initiative. And you see, as we interview 100 level students for the scholarship, I saw a lot of brilliant young minds that have created very good learning apps. And then we wonder, at 100 level, this type of initiative can come from an African child. And someone says there is no hope for Africa. We are going to look at the importance of network and collaboration. And of course, ASFI has provided a very good platform for networking and for collaboration. And I see a lot of networking going on. Let's continue to network until we see the change that we desire. What is self-learning? What is self-learning? We live in a society where a lot of people have promoted traditional learning so much. Traditional learning has its place in learning, no doubt. It is critical to learning, no doubt. However, you agree with me that most of our students, particularly those of us that are teaching at the university level, teaching at the secondary school level, you agree with me that our students are gradually getting to the point where they merely reflect the thoughts of others. There's something they call chew and pour here in Ghana where I teach. You see students, la crème la pour, they pour down things exactly the way lecturers have given it to them. Nothing is made better. Nothing is made worse. It is just give and take. But what exactly is self-learning? Self-learning is seen as an approach to learning where individual makes the effort to identify their own learning needs. They set their learning goals. They find the necessary resources and evaluate their own knowledge. As a matter of fact, they are not under any pressure of society to meet with the demand or to supply a particular expectation from the culture. It is not a pursuit of knowledge that is driven by culture or external pressure. No, self-learners follow their own curiosity to create something unique from their learning experience. And the good part is that they move at their own pace. When we talk about self-learning, it involves gathering information, it involves processing the information, it involves retaining the information without necessarily following a curriculum, without necessarily following a planned teaching outline. These self-learners are able to think critically, they are able to analyze knowledge gotten, and they are able to know what to hold on to and what to let go of. Let's look at the historical view of self-learning. So many people say self-learning and think that it is a new concept. But permit me to say that self-learning has come a long way in history. Self-directed learning existed right back from the classical antiquity. We see Greek philosophers such as Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Caesar, Erasmus, Alexander the Great. You see, Alexander the Great is one unique leader in the sense that, Alexander the Great led out in the Grecian Empire. And when he conquered the Medes and the Persians, he was regarded as the youngest world conqueror. Because as at that time, he had conquered Babylon, he had conquered Libya, he had conquered Medo-Persia. And he was just at the age of 27. So the question was, how did these people achieve this feat at this age? We see the term self-learning coming from two Greek words. We have the autos and the didactos. So when you combine the two words, autodidactikos, it simply means a self-directed learning, a self-education. It is an education without the guidance of masters, without the guidance of teachers, without the guidance of professors, without the guidance of any institutional setting such as schools. We see people like Socrates, people like Caesar, Augustus, people like Alexander the Great, even right back from the classical school of thought, training themselves in the act of war, in the act of governance, in the act of management. And then the question today is, what are we doing? And what can we do to also improve upon ourselves? When we contrast self-learning and traditional learning, you see, traditional learning follows the classroom teaching method. It can be very engaging, and at times it can also be very boring. It actually depends on who is leading out and the set of students. It depends on the environment. It depends on the content and context of learning. So traditional learning can be interactive, it can be socializing, it has its own merit, it has its own advantages. But sometimes it can actually lead to a memorized learning. And you see, most times when we have this memorized learning, sometimes it doesn't give room for transformation, especially the transformation that we desire. Quickly, let me just touch on briefly on some Skinner. This theory talks about the fact that what reinforces a behavior is the reward that is gotten from that behavior. And so we see B.F. Skinner saying that stimulus evokes a response, and that response evokes a reinforcement. And this reinforcement is what drives the learner to learn. We have the phenomenologist theory as propounded by a German philosopher, Edmund Husserl. And in his own theory, he tried to establish the fact that the quest for self-esteem, for self-concept, to fulfill the ego of self is what drives this learning. We also have the information processing theory as established by psychologists George A. Miller and Richard Schleifen in the 1960s. And to them, this theory is, it buttresses how humans stores information, how they get information, how they process the information. So this theory actually suggests that our cognitive abilities are based on interaction of our sensory memory, which can be either the short-term or the long-term memory. The social cognitive theory. The social cognitive theory is also known as the social learning theory, as developed by psychologist Bandura, who says that people are motivated by the consequences they expect to receive rather than the actual rewards themselves. We also have the volitional theory of self-learning, which talks about the fact that human beings are responsible for their thoughts and action. And as responsible people, they have to learn themselves so that they can own their learning space. We also have the Vygotskian theory of self-learning. This learner internalizes good remark or things said by others, and it helps to create a sense of interpersonal communication, which motivates a self-regulated learning. And we also have the constructivist theory. In this constructivist theory, the learners play an active role during learning, and they try to recall what they have learned, and that becomes an intrinsic motivation for them. By the time the materials are shared, we can look at learning materials theory, and we will get to see that indeed mastering self-learning techniques is a necessary requirement if we must experience continuous growth. And it is a valuable skill that must be acquired by all, especially in today's rapidly changing world. The ability to learn independently is key for us to experience growth continuously. The ability to adapt to new challenges, to acquire new skills and stay relevant in personal and professional life cannot be overemphasized. And we are blessed with a lot of free resources online that we can actually tap into and train ourselves, aside from all the rote training or traditional training we have received. I love this quote from Brian Herbert. He says, the capacity to learn is a gift. The ability to learn is a skill, but the willingness to learn is a choice. Please underline this words, that the capacity to learn is a gift. The ability to learn is a skill. The willingness to learn is a choice. And no one can be forced against his will. And until we get to that point of making personal decisions to say, no, I must go the extra mile. I must pull the extra strings to see what I can become in my field. There is no PhD degree that can give you everything you need to know in your field. You need to push yourself a little further in order to know that. Look at what Socrates says. Socrates says that education is the kindling of a flame, not the filling of the vessel. So in order to fill the vessel, there is a need for you to go the extra mile. And what is that extra mile? The extra mile we need to go today is to self-learn. You see, Kwame Nkrumah says this. He says the African version of education has betrayed our identity. If you look at our system of education in our school today, it gives little room for self-learning. You see some teachers give a content and expect the students to deliver the content the exact way that it has been given, or they experience failure. And so students are restricted to give back what they have gotten. But Kwame Nkrumah says that the African version of education has betrayed our identity and our uniqueness and our sovereignty as a people. He says it awards rote learning, emphasizing memorization of facts, figures, events, and identification of personalities, sadly parading good memory to mean good education. For crying out loud, if an Islamic child can memorize the Quran from the beginning to the end before they are graduated as a good Islamist, then tell me what is in a textbook that somebody cannot memorize. Good memory cannot necessarily be classified as a good education. He went further to say that ours is a system that has produced degrees. He says the mystery of our education is this: the course content is partnered after the so-called developed world, and the students and teachers are mimicking content alien to the African reality and narrative. He says this system ends up only, the engineers we train today, they end up likely knowing only the history, at best the news of engineering, but they are highly incapacitated. In fact, it will interest you to know that even some engineers do not know how to change a car tire. Those are the engineers we produce. Today, what do we see? It says our education has simply produced reflectors of other people's opinion and the way of thinking. It has betrayed our conviction. It has betrayed our conscience. It has betrayed our character, and it has betrayed our personality. And he concludes by saying, ours is a paradoxical education. I want us to listen to some more quotes from some people about this. Look at Carl Rogers. He says, and I quote, the only person who is educated is the one who has learned, and the one who has also learned how to change, how to learn and change. We say an illiterate is someone who cannot read and write, but thank God that definition has changed over time. That an illiterate is someone who has refused to learn and unlearn some things that need to be unlearned. Sorry, I think my... Please, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Okay. All right, so learning is not the product of teaching. Learning is a product of the activity of learners. And what does that activity include? It includes your ability to train yourself. Now, what are the importance of self-learning? One, it makes you adapt to change easily. You see, little did we know that the world is going to go online the way it did. But COVID came, and except we change with the changing world, we'll remain static. So the world is constantly evolving, especially in areas of technology. Self-learning equips individuals with the ability to adapt to new challenges and changes, and adapt to new circumstances effectively. And it helps us to remain relevant and competitive in our field. Self-learning also brings freedom and autonomy, independence in learning. You see, this independence and autonomy gives you a level of self-reliance. It empowers the individual to take control of their own education and their own personal growth, and they are able to monitor this. Learning independently often involves tackling complex problems. You never can tell the amount of complex issues you can deal with if you do not explore. It says it helps you to find solutions on your own, and it develops problem-solving skills. We have complained so badly about African situation, but the question is, are we just going to remain complainants without thinking of ways out of solving this problem? Critical thinking, resilience, and ability to face challenges is one of the efforts of self-learning. Self-learning gives one the opportunity to continuously improve. to continuously grow. It makes you make a commitment to growth at your own pace. And improving this knowledge, you will identify your own learning goals, you will plan, you will execute, and you will review this, and it continues in that cycle. And when this cycle continues, it gives room for continuous growth and continuous development. Permit me to make a case on how self-learning can bring about an entrepreneurial mindset. I just talked about some young scholars that are being interviewed for scholarship. And you see these young minds coming up with creativity of something they have invented themselves. They didn't learn this in school. They did not. They learned this on their own through some learning materials, through some learning aids. And you see, it has provided an invaluable tool to acquire knowledge that has made one entrepreneurial in nature. I want to share the experience of one of our former students. Adekweju Sheiton, I met her sometimes when she was in 200 level. And you see, she came from a very funny background with a single mother, and two of them were in school. It was so bad at a time that they were almost being pulled out of school because the mother could no longer sustain the bills. Kweju thought of what she could do. And so she decided to learn the skill of sewing on her own. She was studying accounting. She decided to learn the skill of sewing on her own. And while she goes for classes in the daytime, at night she stays awake to make clothes for her mate who pays her in return. And through the help of this entrepreneurial skill, she was able to assist herself and her younger sister to pull through school. Kweju graduated with a second-class at the upper credit level division from the Babcock University, and she also graduated a chartered accountant. But today, for over 4 to 5 years of leaving school, Kweju has never worked for anyone. Today, Kweju owns her own fashion school in Niger State in Nigeria. And you see, this was her wedding gown. She made it herself. This is her fashion school with her girls in the fashion school. And this was the last set of the graduating student from her fashion school. Kweju trained herself. And today, this young lady, who is still less than 30 years, have been able to create a brand for herself. And when you check the Oza Woman brand, it is flooded with a lot of followings, with a lot of customers, both within and outside the country. It is not the accounting she learned in school that she is using to train, that she's using to live. She has become an employer of labor. The accounting she learned in school, the chartered accountant certificate she has, may grow, of course, improve her business. But you could see that it was a soft skill she learned that has put food on her table. Yes, self-learning may come with its own challenges because lack of self-discipline could make the effort an effort in futility. Of course, there's very little face-to-face contact and it can make it very boring sometimes. The lack of versatility and choice, the lack of feedback from coaches and people to pat you on the back. You know, of course, it also takes diligent effort to be successful at self-learning, and self-learners could also have a wrong appraisal of themselves. Yes, I agree, but this has not removed or neglected or negated the fact that the importance of self-learning can brings about tremendous growth, tremendous room for development. What are the strategies that can help me be a good self-learner? Let me quickly share this. One, you need to set clear learning goals. Define your learning goals and your objective. Know what you want to achieve and look for ways to keep yourself motivated so that you don't lose courage and you don't lose hope, even when your goals are not achieved. I also want to say that self-learning, another strategy that would help self-learning. Sorry, I think my it's freezing. Okay, so develop a study schedule. Don't just Don't just do a scattered and a disorganized learning. Today you stumbled on this, tomorrow you stumble on another thing, next tomorrow you stumble on another thing. And so you keep scouting and scattering things here and there without even focusing on anything. Consistency is one of the key to effective self-learning. Discipline is another key, and it will bridge the gap between your goals and your attainment. Discipline is key. Then you also need to choose credible learning sources. You see, while writing a research paper, we have gone through several proposal writing, different things. You see, you need to be sure of your learning sources, because there are a lot of things on the internet today, a lot of things, and some of them are not correct. So when we cite a source and we are running with the source, there is a need for comparison of scholastic information. A credible source is always backed up with relevant fact and figure. Check the currency of the material you're studying, check the relevance of the material, check the authority, check the accuracy, check the purpose of it. So in choosing your learning sources, ensure that it is relevant, it is correct, and you can make reference to it. Another strategy for self-learning is that the knowledge you have gained, you must be able to apply it. The true value of knowledge is not in its accumulation, but in its application. So the best way to retain what you have learned is to test your knowledge and actually apply it to the real world. We're talking about a lot of issues: climate change, global warming, series of issues here and there, cybercrime. The question is the knowledge we gain. How are we able to apply it to solve real problems? The articles we write, how are they able to connect with societal issues to solve real problems? Practice retrieval. Test yourself regularly to reinforce your memory. Quiz yourself, even though self-learning does not have to do with any structured examination, but identify areas that requires further review and improve on yourself through that further review. Share knowledge and collaborate. Don't be an island of knowledge. Look at what Professor Bright is doing and his team. Share knowledge. He says sharing knowledge is the most fundamental act of friendship, because it is a way you can give something without losing something. Knowledge is a commodity to be shared. It is not a commodity to be hoarded. For knowledge to pay dividend, it should not remain a monopoly of a selected few. And in sharing your knowledge, you are actually expanding the wealth of knowledge. And you are also learning more. That's another strategy for self-learning. And you must also stay motivated. Self-learning entails motivating yourself. Even when there is no one to encourage you, even when you have failed and you feel that you have wasted all the time, all the day, not learning anything, find ways to stay motivated. Do not give up. Focus on your study goals and keep connecting until it is achieved. We also have self-learning techniques and how to assess relevant resources. The internet is filled with blog articles, books for anyone and you can choose from any learning material you want to. You have the Britannica, you have the Encyclopedia, National Geographic, and for kids, Read World, Science News for students, Goodread, and look at all the ASFI material that have even been showcased on our ASFI app. Several learning sources. Do a visual note-taking. That's also another strategy. Don't just read and forget about it. Combine text with visuals. You have several visual note-taking aids that is also available online. The mind map, the concept map, the flowchart, the Venn diagram. You can go on and on. You see, the world today is changing. I was in a senior high school some weeks ago, and I was talking with a student, and I saw, I was asking them about these 5 genres of video and what they watch, what they view. Is it educational? Is it promotional? Is it informational? Is it documentary? And permit me to say, more than 70% of the students, what they were focused on is on that entertainment. But how much can they self-learn from entertainment is a question. What real experience can they really get from entertainment? That is not to say that there is nothing to learn from it, but we must choose our materials very wisely. There are several online platforms, particularly since the since the COVID era, that can improve and expand our knowledge and our self-learning.
Okay, Benny. Okay, Benny, you have just about 3 minutes.
There's what they call the Google Garage. Of course, the LinkedIn cannot. About how many minutes?
About just 3 minutes to
I didn't hear you, please.
3 minutes. 3 minutes to wrap up. Yeah.
Are you saying 10 minutes or 5 minutes?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
All right, so let me quickly go to the next. Okay, let me quickly go to the networking opportunities. I think you share the slides later. Networking is about connecting with people of like minds that can open up opportunities for you. And in fact, networking opens very unusual doors. The importance of networking cannot be overemphasized. And we can see the importance, how it expands visibility and how it improves you. Attend conferences, seek mentorship, collaborate on research projects and all of that. Let me conclude with this. A person may want to learn a little bit about everything, but they will have to work hard at it. It is a process of taking charge of your studies. It is this desire that furthers oneself. And despite its drawback, self-directed learning should not be written off. Instead, we should look for a way to make it better. Remember that education can kindle a flame, but only self-learning would lead to the filling of the vessel. We cannot afford to be narrow-minded. Look at what people go through. If we must travel out of the country, at least let's travel with some level of dignity. See what people go through. Is it that these people cannot develop themselves and learn to improve upon themselves and contribute to society? See what people go through in a bid to run away from their country. I wish I could go through some very successful people that have self-learned and how they have improved society. Look at Dr. Wangari Maathai. She was the first woman in the Central Eastern region to hold a PhD degree, but she did not stop at that. And today, she's also regarded as the first African woman to win a Nobel Prize of Peace. This is one of our leaders on the board of CON. And even though she's an Oxford-trained legal practitioner, you need to see all the soft skills and all the lessons, the other things aside from her profession that she has brought on board. This is Sandy Ganiza. She is actually a personal friend. We were at the Uplift conference together this year. And this woman owned one of the biggest construction companies in South Africa that has won several awards. But you need to see all the soft skills. In fact, she owned one of the biggest brand of wig making in South Africa and in Zimbabwe. I can go on and on to talk about people. This is a 100-level student in my university here at Valley View University that developed an app that is making a lot of waves here in Ghana. The truth is, a star can be black and a black star truly shine. So wherever we find ourselves, let us learn to develop ourselves. Let's do everything we can to continue to improve ourselves through the process of self-learning. And we will see that indeed, Africa, the change we desire lies within us. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Benita. That was a wonderful submission. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please, can we make her feel welcome? Wow. Someone say, wow, this is great, fantastic. She's my friend, I know her. That's great. She submitted and she said, learning motivated by self-need to solve a problem. Learning motivated by self-need to solve a problem. And I read the quote again. She said, education is the rekindling of a flame, not the filing of a vessel. She went ahead by talking about the importance of self-learning. Adaptation so easily to change, continuous improvement, entrepreneurial mindset. And she wrapped by telling us how we can do that. Set a clear goal, develop a study schedule, choose a credible learning sources, apply the knowledge you have learned, practical retrieval, and the last one, share knowledge and collaborate. And that is why we're here. Thank you so much, Dr. Benita. We appreciate your submission. We appreciate your submission. Please, can we have a round of applause for her? Can I have people throw some bubbles around just to say thank you for what she has done? Dr. Bright, please, you can appreciate our guest while we move to the next session. Dr. Bright.
All right. That was great. That was great and a great reminder. Thank you so much, Dr. Amos-Fidelis, for your time. The fact is that what you have presented now, even though you trace the history of where we started, sooner or later, that is where our world is going back to. That is where our world is going back to. So it's important for us to develop strategies to become independent in our learning. And of course, being able to be critical. I started quite early. One of the things I never liked was to memorize. And because I didn't like memorizing, that affected a lot on my grade. Okay. But I never regretted it because I have been quite stubborn. That is why today, the student I teach, I never give exams. I don't give exams, except where the institution says, well, we need exams. But for my students, I don't give exams. And the reason is that I don't think exams reflect what I want the student to get. So you put exams and people go around, they memorize, they prepare for exams, and after the exams, then things they just forget. So I use strategies that will make people to develop interest first. And when they develop interest, they can learn for life. So thank you very much for this reminder. And I believe for every one of us, we can take it home. Thank you.